Today we're talking about Wendy Mayers and her disappearance.
I'm guessing you're going to cover that because that could be a wide range of things. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll cover that. This is New Zealand's oldest missing person case on record that became a homicide inquiry.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, not fucking ideal.
No.
Wendy Catherine Mayers was born in 1945 to her mother Joyce. I can't find anything about her father.
No.
And she has two older sisters. Wendy was a beautiful ballerina who had just passed her final exam and was aspiring to teach ballet. She lived with her family on White Lines East in Waiwitu. I think that's how you say it. Lower Hutt. At the time, she was working as a typist for Standard Bodies Motor Limited. She had recently started dating a man called Ken Morrissey. At the age of 16, she responded to an ad in the Dominion paper, which read, "Photographer requires model for calendar work, 12 sittings, £2, 2 shilling per sitting."
So I'm guessing that was quite a bit back then.
I don't fucking know.
Well, I don't remember. We're not that old. We don't know what pounds and shillings are.
Submit photograph if available to PO Box 331 Wellington. The man who placed the ad, John Maltby, who was 30 at the time, was in fact not a photographer.
Who would have thunk it?
And had also used a false name, J. Thompson, to place the ad. Maltby had previously run an agency called Burnston Modelling and Charm School. His wife Doris, however, was not keen on this kind of work, so he was trying to avoid her finding out. He was trying to make a comeback. Red flag.
Yeah.
His day-to-day job was a trainee butcher, and he had previously been an owner of the Sunbeam supermarket in Lyall Bay. Prior to coming to New Zealand in 1956, he was a minor criminal while living in England. He had 6 burglary charges dating from when he was about 13, and in 1953, while living in Australia, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison for burglary.
Okay, so there's burglary. So who's a burglar?
He's a burglar.
Okay.
Maltby fathered 3 children with his wife Doris. The last one being born on Thursday, September the 14th, 1961, the day Maltby first met with Wendy. Dun, dun, dun.
Wait, so he just had a baby
That day.
and he met up with
He's
some
like-
random chick.
Yeah. Yep.
Priorities, yeah. Placing his work first.
Priorities, eh? Righty-ho. At 6:30, Thursday the 14th of September 1961, Wendy and her friend Diane Bell met Thompson, quotations, upstairs at a coffee bar called the Carousel on Troy Street. Wendy and Diane were told that the calendar would be circulated around Australia and would have a big accent on legs. Because who doesn't love a good leg?
Wonder if they were shaving back then.
What a question. Should Google that though.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were.
Yeah.
Diane measured Wendy's legs for Maltby as he made notes. Red flag. After the meeting finished.
So weird.
I know. After the meeting finished, Maltby drove both the young woman in his black 1951 Wolseley car to the Manners Street post office. Far out. 18th of September. The
Manners Street is a good McDonald's. Just remember.
Okay, when I go looking for Wendy, I'll...
Wendy's. Sorry.
18th of September, the Monday following their prior meeting, Wendy told her mother Joyce that she would be late home due to the interview. Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool.
After work around 5 p.m, Wendy met Maltby again at the cafe, which followed another young woman's interview with him. After 16 minutes together, Wendy and Maltby were seen driving off in his car, turning right from Jessie Street onto Troy Street. This is the last positive identification of Wendy.
So, he had his child born that day.
Yes.
And then he had
He dipped.
He dipped, and he hung out with Wendy and measured her legs.
Yep.
And then saw someone else.
The following Monday, yep. So
so it's not on it. Okay, so
that
it's on
all
a different
happened
day.
on Thursday. So the baby being born, the first meeting with Wendy,
Yeah.
the measuring of the legs, that happened on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And then the Monday, he met back up with Wendy after interviewing another woman.
Picking favourites, isn't he?
Red flag.
Yeah.
Not even, but...
Well, he just drove off with a woman. Like.
Anyway, Maltby later advised that he dropped Wendy off in Manners Street. He did not explain why he took a route that began heading briefly towards his home near Wellington Zoo. Thursday the 19th of September at 3 a.m. Joyce noticed that Wendy had not returned home after her interview and called the police. Wednesday 20th of September, with the information that, quotations, Thompson and Wendy had been sighted driving off from the cafe. Around this time, Maltby went to view 3 houses in Pinehaven, Upper Hutt, as a result of another advertisement he has placed in the newspaper.
Wait, so he'd driven off with Wendy.
He dropped her off in Manners
he
Street.
dropped her off. Okay.
Dropped her off in Manners Street, and then around that time, he went to view 3 other houses.
Okay, yeah.
So Melrose to Pinehaven is 40 minutes away. That'll come back later when I mention Melrose again. Maltby's black Wolseley was spotted by police. Maltby was identified, arrested and questioned about Wendy's disappearance. Maltby said he did not kill or harm Wendy in any way.
So he just dropped her off. That's
He
his
dropped
story.
her off.
Yeah. At McDonald's on Manners Street.
Yes. Was Macca's was a thing back then.
I don't know.
Anyway, after leaving Wendy, Maltby said he had driven home, eaten a meal and visited his wife, who was still in hospital.
Oh, this buddy.
Before returning home again for the night. Maltby advised on Tuesday he returned to work at the... I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but just bear with me. Onipu Butchery in Lyle Bay. Onipu.
Onipu.
Yeah, that is it. It's Onipu. It's like one poo.
One poo. Onipu. Oh, yeah,
Yes.
Onipu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His movements after leaving the hospital and returning to work are unknown. After 6 hours, Maltby was released, as there had been insufficient evidence to hold him. When Maltby had been arrested in his home, police... This gets a wee bit messy, so just bear with me. When Maltby had been arrested in his home, police found that Maltby had washed a bedspread and he was drying it in front of a heater. It was suspected that he had used this to wrap Wendy's body in. The police then found vomit in the drain containing aspirin. It is more likely that Maltby vomited on the blanket, and this is why he had washed it and was drying it.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, that bit.
As a sighting earlier in the day by one of his friends at the chemist, as he was sighted earlier in the day by one of his friends at the chemist, here, quotations, similar to Wendy's was found on the blanket, but there was nothing conclusive in this respect, coroner Evans said.
Also, he could have even just slept with her as well and then just let her go, dropped her off again or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know, she's got a boyfriend, I don't think she'd sleep with him, but
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway.
Agreed.
But saying that a hair found similar to Wendy's, even if they could do like DNA stuff, you can't just test off the hair strand, you've got to have the follicle.
Right.
I believe.
That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The head of police inquiry, Detective Chief Inspector W.S. Craigie, wrote in 1962 that Maltby had seemed highly confident when questioned. And this is his words, which could suggest that he had disposed of the body where it was unlikely to be found. So that was his sentence. This could also suggest that Maltby was telling the truth. Maltby tends to be convicted with no definitive evidence against him.
So he is convicted in the end then?
No, he's not convicted.
Oh, okay.
But he's everything gets pointed back to him.
Yeah, because he was the last one to...
Yeah, last one to see her.
Yeah.
Which is, pretty damning evidence, to be honest. But
yeah.
okay. Maltby was put under 24-hour surveillance with police at the front of the home. After no activity, after several hours, they decided to enter the home, thinking Maltby had fled. They found him startled. To be honest, if a cop broke into your house, I'd be
quite startled.
Yeah, you'd be startled as well. Got a note here saying fear, to be honest.
Yeah.
He was rocking back and forwards on his bed, babbling to himself. I mean, I would most probably be muttering to myself as well if a cop broke into my house.
Yeah, me too.
For 2 days after Wendy went missing, 200 people, police and volunteers slashed through the gorse on the Melrose Hills above Maltby's home, which is 40 minutes away from Pinehaven, where he was viewing houses.
Oh, you said that, yeah.
4:45 a.m. Thursday the 21st of September, Maltby fled out the back of his home and took off into nearby scrub. The police saw him leave but couldn't find him. A massive search began for Wendy and Maltby. Police extended the search and large patrols combed the beaches and hills in the Wellington and Hutt Valley district. The police asked newspapers to publish Maltby's picture since his car maintenance record had indicated that he had travelled up to 786 k's in 5 days.
Oh,
It's a lot.
it is a lot. Even if you're driving back and forth to view houses, that's still quite a bit.
That's too much.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Because the distance from Melrose to Pinehaven was like 35k.
Yeah.
So he'd have to
do a lot of driving. Yeah.
No appeal was made to police stations in the lower North Island for information on if Maltby had filled up in the period soon after Wendy's disappearance. Trevor Malloy, a private investigator, said that the police file has a report from a man who believes he filled Maltby's petrol tank early on Tuesday, September 19th. Okay. 3 days after Maltby's disappearance and 6 days after Wendy's disappearance, Maltby's body was found by 2 fishermen floating in the surf at Island Bay Beach.
Ah. So he's killed himself, probably.
It was determined by Coroner P. Kessing that Maltby had drowned, but it wasn't clear how he had come to be in the sea.
Right.
Police later told Coroner Gary Evans in 2009 that there was no evidence that Maltby threatened suicide.
Oh. So, someone did something with Wendy, and then someone came and killed that dude.
Maltby. Why would they kill Maltby though?
That's what I was just thinking.
I
Even
mean,
though that's like this person.
it does look like he's committed suicide. Maybe
Yeah.
they were trying to make it look like he committed suicide.
Yeah.
Because of the guilt of what he'd done or something.
Yeah.
Anyway. 3 men had claimed to see Wendy around the time of her disappearance. The first man said that they had seen her walking down Dixon Street, central to Wellington, on the Monday she went missing. The second man said they had seen 2 people in a car like Maltby's near his home, although the witness was uncertain if the passenger was male or female. The third man said 7 days after Wendy's disappearance, he said he saw her in a blue car in her home street. As the mystery, and that's just a fun fact, as the mystery entered its 9th day, the police were swamped with calls. In 4 days they received an average of 800 calls a day from the public concerning the search.
Jeez.
The hundreds of calls we received and had been screened and checked by teams of search parties. No scientific analysis No scientific analysis found clear evidence linking Maltby to a crime. No scratch marks on his body, no bloodstains or tears in his suit, and nothing in his car. Right. That we're going to go off on a little detour now.
Yeah.
Okay. After 47 years of silence, Wendy's then boyfriend, Ken Morrissey, has spoken out. This is a recount from him. Alright?
Yeah.
So bear with me. It's a wee bit all over the joint. Ken thinks he met Wendy at a party. He says Wendy had no trouble getting into the pubs to drink. She lived in Woolburn and worked in Wellington. Her parents were strict. She was a pretty girl and had 2 older sisters. Wendy's parents would only ever meet Ken at the police station, by which time she was presumed dead.
Wow. Yeah.
Wendy had been going out with Ken, who was a merchant seaman, for a few months at the time she had disappeared. She also kept, unknown to him, a young girl's diary in which there were extraordinarily frank disclosures about their romance.
Nice.
Which led...
You go, sis.
Are you ready for this next sentence? Which led police to him as a first suspect.
Oh my god.
I mean, they were dating, so generally he would have been the first suspect, but...
Yeah. But so,
I wonder what was in the diary.
Details are rough.
She kept their relationship a secret. This could have been as they had very different backgrounds. Ken was a tough-acting teddy boy from a broken home, and her family might have had misgivings about him. Ken says, I thought she was 18 and I was 20, a worldly 20. That means he was mature for his age.
Right.
I'd run away from home at 16 and I was uncontrollable and getting into trouble. One day I said to my mother, I'm going to go and get a job on the ship that goes up and down from Wellington. I'll be back tomorrow. I don't think I came back for 18 months.
Nice.
I know. Gap it, boy. I'd run away from Christchurch to escape everything that was restricted. For young people, there was nothing going on in New Zealand then. I'd seen the English seamen come in wearing all their smart gear, and for a while I would talk like a Cockney myself. Those seamen were our idols. First chance I got, I ran away to sea. Wendy and I, we'd met when we were tied up at a dock in Wellington. It was reasonably difficult during the day because of her job, but we'd have lunch, a toasted sandwich. I guess in those days, or she would meet me after work. Sundays were my days off, and I had the ship all to myself. We'd met then too, but she wasn't one of them ship girls. She wouldn't have known what that meant. Do you know what that means?
I do. I think everyone else does as well. We won't go into detail.
No. So a ship girl is so ship girls use men for their ships.
Yeah.
And the alcohol on their ships. She was just a young girl starting out trying to find her way in the world. I remember her with dark reddish hair. I can't be sure of the colour now or the colour of her eyes, but her very pale skin. She was immaculate and stylish. I don't think she'd done much modelling, if any, but she had potential. She was bloody beautiful, actually. Had a fabulous figure. She liked to laugh. She was a good dancer. She was a nice girl and I loved her. But I find it weird that he remembers what they had for lunch, but not her hair colour.
That's a little bit funky, but I suppose as well, like, that could also be your brain just cutting off that bit.
It could be, you know, toasted sandwiches were quite a cool thing back in the day, and it was quite a significant thing.
Oh, okay, so maybe that's just why.
Yeah,
that kind of makes sense, I guess, as well.
Ken was arrested the morning of September 16th. So that's not correct, because she wasn't even missing September 16th. So,
Well, it could have been the following year.
No.
Oh.
No. This conflicts with other information, which I've just said. So he was arrested on suspicion of murder. This was the first time he had heard of Wendy's disappearance. Ken recalls being interrogated roughly and unprofessionally for a distressing 3 days, losing his temper before they finally accepted that he was at sea when she went missing. And her disappearance was a big shock to him, as well as everyone else. He says, it has worried me all my life.
Right, yeah. As it would.
He sailed at 2 p.m. that day for Picton. She met Maltby at 5 p.m. while he was at sea, and he had no idea she had such a plan in mind. Now it bothers him that he may have talked idly about going to Australia, and that Maltby maybe suggested Wendy might get a future modelling there, and that would enable her to follow. Ken said that he would have loved to have been able to read his police statement of the time, in part to remind himself what sort of young man he was so long ago, and in part to test his memory against what actually happened. That seems weird to me.
Dealing with trauma, I guess. Like.
Was he? Or was he thrill-seeking?
Well, you never know.
Trying to relive the moment.
Yeah, there's...
He killed her.
Maybe. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Don't know. I don't think so, but yeah. Ken says he is one of the most law-abiding people you could meet.
Oh, if you go into that kind of detail, though.
That's a weird comment.
Yeah.
Still immaculately groomed, he wears a crucifix blessed by Pope Jean Paul II, given to him by his wife. They were married at 38 and she passed 4 years ago. Ken retired at 65 after nearly 41 years as a flight service director with Air New Zealand. Despite his devotion to his wife, who he had gone out with before he met Wendy, the mystery of Wendy Mays has always been a presence in his life. He says that with Wendy I would often wonder what could have been. There were a million girls in those days, but the fact that she was removed from my life, I don't know if I would have changed my ways, or would she have grown out of it, or what. If I married her, maybe I'd gone for a different line of work entirely and had a different life. That's so sad. Like, she was removed from his life.
Yeah.
I got a lot of slagging at the time, people saying I'd actually done it and had gotten away with it, and enemies I made then using it against me. It affected me quite often, not on a daily basis or a weekly basis, just wondering what happened to her. There is a book with the case in it, but it doesn't seem correct, by saying Maltby committed suicide or her body was in the hills, and that Maltby was a former butcher and had access to the Wellington Hospital furnace. Why would he have access to a hospital furnace being a butcher? Like, that
doesn't make sense.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't read the book, and that was just a part of his statement as well. In 2008, Detective Trevor Malloy, who was a private investigator, prompted the inquest on behalf of the family. He looked for Wendy's death certificate when making inquiries. When he had not found anything, he contacted the coroner. So an inquest is a judicial inquiry to ascertain the facts relating to an incident. Okay, so Malloy told the inquest he had spoken to Maltby's family, in which he discovered that Maltby's wife had never been interviewed by the police because she was in hospital at the time of the disappearance and she had just had a baby. 11th of December 2008, Wendy Mays was pronounced deceased. Police believed Maltby murdered Wendy the night she disappeared. The coroner, Mr. Evans, found Wendy had died at the hands of one person, but was ruled that there was not enough evidence to show who. So they do not have the body.
They still don't have the body.
They don't have the body, but they're saying that she was killed. Right. Theory 1 of what happened. So this came out December 2018, this story. A former timber yard worker said that Wendy had accepted a ride with a milkman and a youngster. The youngster had been dropped off at some point. Wendy had been attacked and killed. She was then driven up to the Hayward Hill Road refuse tip that was operating back in 1961. When the killer was unable to access the refuse pit, her body was driven back down to the Hutt Valley Expressway that was under construction at the time. There her body has been concealed. There would have been a lot of roading materials, drainage ditches, and etc. in the area at the time. It had been raining for days, and according to people that lived in that area at the time, it was a very dark and dingy place with not a lot of lighting. It was realised later that the former timber yard worker was heavily involved in the milk delivery trade during the 60s and 70s. The timber yard worker confessed, but the police are concerned. But as the police are concerned, it's only hearsay information and will not be investigated.
So he confessed to something that...
He confessed that this happened.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah. There's a potential that he was involved, though, because he was involved in the milk delivery trade. Which is the vehicle that Wendy would have gotten into. Okay, 58 years after Wendy's disappearance in 2019, a man approached the Herald, the New Zealand Herald, who told of what he heard happened. The man, who asked not to be named, says he heard from a friend who was told by another man several years ago that around the time of the disappearance that Wendy was seen getting into a milk truck. He says her body was buried in a construction site. When asked about the information, Detective Sergeant Pete Vine told the Herald on Sunday, "As this has always been hearsay information, as we do, we follow the chain and have requested the informant provide details of the unnamed source and have them contact the police. The police could then meet the middleman in the chain. This will further collaborate what has been told and enable police to properly assess the information. Any risk to what further inquiries can be made." The informant was last spoken to by a detective on January 2019 and advised the unnamed person would contact police, but this has not been done to the police's knowledge. Kelly Carbon, who was granddaughter to Wendy's sister, believes new information warrants a closer look. She said the man everyone originally thought killed her was John Maltby, but he claimed he dropped her off. That's the last we saw of him, and he has a good alibi. He went straight to the hospital as his wife was giving birth. I think the news story does add up. After 58 years, for this to come up now, like, why would someone make this up?
Yeah.
I thought that could maybe be a deathbed confession.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. And it makes sense though, like it does make sense. And then you can also, like, with the Thompson dude, the quotation marks, Maltby, I keep forgetting his name, Thompson dude, you can have sudden, like, impulsive thoughts as well to just commit suicide, like the really,
I know, but
and other things.
drowning yourself is quite a difficult act.
Yeah.
Unless he severely drugged himself, but yeah. But it says nothing about drugs being in the system.
Yeah.
Right, so the family were put in contact with the informant after responding to an online post which was seeking to contact Wendy's family. When the Crown Law Office was asked if it would consider opening a new inquest, they said there would need to be new facts or other reason that made it necessary in the interest of justice. So this isn't really a theory, this is more of a fact.
Yeah.
So this is from they've got a Facebook page for this.
Yeah.
So this is the information from that.
Yeah.
When Wendy went to the first interview with Maltby, her best friend Diane was there, and Maltby dropped them off into town.
Yeah.
Diane never went to the second interview. A coincidence is that the former milk vendor that revealed the details of what, quotations, really happened to Wendy, his surname was also the same as Diane's. The family have since looked for Diane but found nothing. So Kelly says, "My nana tells me she remembers the day Wendy left. She was dressed up to the nines because she knew she was meeting that guy for the job. She had pearls on, brooches, rings, makeup perfect, yet nothing has ever been found. It's like there's no trace of her at all. There was nothing found in Maltby's car, and you would think if she fought him and struggled, there would be a necklace, earring or something. Nana and her sister have gotten DNA tested, just in case the discovery of any remains are found over the years. Their hearts will never rest until they get closure, but it's not looking likely. I just remember my nana saying her mum Joyce, who has since passed, was distraught for years and years. She never stopped hunting. She ended up getting phone calls from crazy people saying we've seen Wendy. She never let it go. In the end she just had to. It was causing too much pain." Isn't that awful?
That sucks, eh? That's so sad.
Why would you find joy in being like, hey, I seen your missing daughter, but I actually didn't?
Yeah. Well, because it's the thing, they could have thought they had seen her, you know, and just,
I don't know.
That's awful.
There was another part that I haven't written in there, but police received a lot of phone calls and a lot of letters saying that they had her, someone had her, they'd seen her.
Yeah,
all
but there
this
was
stuff.
800 calls a day, though, that you said at the start. But, like, people can
Letters and
believe...
stuff.
Yeah, but people can actually believe that they saw something, though.
Yeah, but
some
not,
people can't do that, but...
Yeah, not all of them would have been like that, though. Okay. The 5th of May 2019, the family had been in contact with the police and want the case reopened. Wendy has never been found or any trace of her. completely fair that the family want the case reopened.
Yeah.
Like, I reckon they should reopen the case and look into that,
Yeah.
the milk delivery thing.
Yeah.
If they had buried her under the motorway that was under construction at the time, would there be any ways that they could, you know, search that without ripping that up?
Well, you wouldn't really be able to, would you?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Ultrasound stuff? I don't know. Ultrasound. No.
Ultrasound.
Ultrasonic. Yeah, ultrasound equipment. But yeah, like, she's been missing for so many years. Like, that family is just going to be distraught.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to carry that with them everywhere they go, even though it's not like Kelly, who is second generation,
Yeah.
is carrying that with her.
Yeah, still. Yeah. No, that's awful, eh? That's horrible. Just no trace, no nothing, no closure at all, apart from something that might not even get looked into because the case won't be opened.
Yeah, that's stupid. They need to reopen that case.
Yeah.
And look into it, because it's not good enough.
Yeah, no, I'd never heard of that case.
Neither.
Neither.
Neither until I
Expert
found
on
it.
it now, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you for listening to our case. I'm Ayla.
And I'm Andi.
And this was Sinister Dynasty.